Welcome home to USA Global TV and Radio. Ours is a place where dreams take flight, voices are heard, and stories are shared. This is where cultures meet, connections are formed, and ideas are transformed into action. This is your destination for authentic storytelling, diverse perspectives, and meaningful conversations. We're where global stories unite and bridges are built beyond all borders. Discover our world of education, entertainment, hope, and inspiration. Together, we're building bridges worldwide. Subscribe to our USA Global TV channel and download our USA Global TV app. Be our guest or join our team. Visit usaglobaltv.com. With heartfelt thanks to our executive producer, Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck, music scored by Yifei Tang from Cloud Road Music, creative direction by Paul Garcia, and I'm Al Cini, and I'm very proud to be part of the USA Global TV and Radio family. So join us here at USA Global TV and Radio. Make us your home for global connection. All rights reserved. This video and its contents are the exclusive property of USA Global TV and Radio. Unauthorized use, duplication, or redistribution in any form is strictly prohibited. Thank you for being a part of our global community. Let's inspire together.
Hey everybody, welcome to You as a Whole, Body, Mind, and Soul on USA Global TV and Radio. My name is Justin MIRIGLIANI, coming to you every Monday at 8 o'clock. And tonight's topic, I've been pretty soft with the topics over the last few weeks, really very Pollyanna type shows that we've done. But this week I'm a little bit revved up. I'm a little bit it's going to be a little tougher, going to be a little rougher. And it's because it's an aggravating thing for me. And that's humiliation. Using humiliation as a tactic to teach and to get people to do things that you want them to do, especially kids. And I'm going to really focus more on young people, even in their 20s, 22, 21, 20, all the way as far back as kids can remember, maybe 3 or 4 years old. I'm substitute teaching now, and I've been doing it for a few months, since September. And I've also have witnessed this a few different times in a few different places where, for whatever reason, people in control, people who are teachers, coaches, leaders of some sort, whether it's Boy Scouts or whatever it is, have some idea that in order to get young people to have discipline and be successful is to humiliate them. And it really does bother me. It really does. I have been much more kind and gentler, however you want to say it, since I had my issues over the summer where I spent some time in the hospital for depression and anxiety. We've talked about that before. And one of the things that I've worked on is anger management and not allowing myself to get overly angry. And even when I am angry, to have control of it. And one of the things that I really struggle with is when I see people humiliate children. And when I'm in the classroom, I never, ever, ever humiliated a child. I pull children aside and I'll talk to them. And this idea that discipline can only be done through humiliation or through rough tactics is just ridiculous. It is. And I can't tell people how to parent. I can't tell people how to coach. I can't tell people how to run their groups. But in my opinion, if you are unable to get something out of or discipline a person, a young person, and teach them something without humiliation, then the problem's you. The problem is not the child. The problem is you. And I don't care if people take offense to that. I really don't. Because the damage that you do when you humiliate a child lasts for a lifetime. It doesn't go away. It stays. I've talked to a lot of people about this. And people who have been humiliated, and they talk about how, almost to a person, how they'd much rather be physically abused than mentally abused. It's the mental abuse that really hurts them the most. And I know I say this a lot, that people will say, well, I need to, before I can date or before I can um, have any type of working life or go and meet friends or whatever it is, I have to wait till my scars heal. And I've said this many, many times. Scars are the healing. Scars do not heal. Wounds heal, scars don't. They last forever. Now, you have to live with the scars. I have scars on my body from surgeries, from injuries, and that part of my body is healed, but that doesn't mean the scars are gone. And that skin can still be tender if you scratch it, if you rub it up against something, if it gets hit or something hot spills on it or whatever the case may be. Those scars still have some pain attached to them. And that's the same thing with emotional scars. Yeah, okay, you could heal from it, but that doesn't mean that it goes away. Hey, Claire, I see Claire's in the house tonight. Welcome, Claire. She's here almost every week, so I appreciate that. Um, but it's those scars still are tender, and that's what you're doing when you're humiliating a child. Why? What's the purpose of it? People say, well, I got to give these kids discipline and we got to teach them how to be good adults and strong adults. No, no, that's not how you do it. That's not how you do it. I knew someone from where I grew up in South Philadelphia, and I don't believe in spanking. I never touched my kids. I never once did I spank my kids or pull their hair or do anything physical that would hurt them. And this woman believed that in order to discipline a child, she said to me, her exact words were, well, obviously you don't discipline your children. And my response to that was, so if I don't beat my children and humiliate them, because that's a form of humiliation, if I don't beat my children and humiliate them and hurt them, then I can't discipline them. So that's the only way you can discipline is to smack a child, hit a child. Really? Is that really true? Now, I know that spanking was in vogue in the 50s, 60s, 70s, and part of the 80s. I get it. That's what parents were taught was discipline. But can we evolve now? I mean, is it possible that we could evolve and understand that that's really not the way to do it? That's not, what does that teach? It teaches that being violent and being humiliating is a way to teach somebody a lesson. Is that what we want to tell kids to do? If they get cut off in traffic when they're 20 some years old, should they beat the daylights out of the person to cut them off in traffic? I don't think so. But that's what we're teaching them when we're hitting them because they did something wrong. It's a self-perpetuating situation. I can remember, look, there are people in my life who I love who have hurt me as a child, not on purpose, but through humiliation that they didn't realize was humiliating. Now, I've talked about my grandfather. I told my parents about this the other day. When I was a little kid, probably 5 years old, little kids talk a lot. They all do, for the most part, unless they're very shy. But it's not unusual for a kid to just keep talking and asking questions. We all know that. And I love my grandfather, and I know he didn't do this to hurt me. But he said, you talk too much. And he was angry when he said it. And maybe he was in the middle of doing something. Maybe he was in the middle of watching something on TV. I don't know. I don't remember exactly what the situation was. But that was humiliating to hear that. And today, when somebody says, I don't have time to talk to you, or you talk a lot, or whatever it is that has to do with talking, I hear my grandfather say those words. They're in my head. And I immediately relive the humiliation. So I have my entire life with my kids, and believe me, I've been aggravated and like, oh, will it ever end? Not only my kids, but other kids too. I was working with some people on Saturday, and there was a kid who was nonstop just talking and talking and talking. And to be honest with you, I at some point just tuned out, but I kept smiling and I kept looking at him and I kept trying to show him that I was listening. I had other things that I had to think about at the time, and I couldn't concentrate on what he was talking about the whole time. And some of it was just childish stuff. Well, he was 10, so of course it was childish stuff. But I didn't say to him, all right, enough's enough. Stop talking. You talk too much, because that would be humiliation. And I wouldn't want to do that because that kid might, probably, would live at that for the rest of his life. We got to be careful with how we treat kids, how we discipline them. I'm not saying let them do whatever they want. See, that's the rub to me. Is it amazes me when people say, well, if you're not rough with kids, if you're not harsh, they don't get the message. That's not true. That's not true at all. That means that you are not, or you don't take the initiative to learn more about disciplining children. So you resort to the lowest common denominator, which is hitting and humiliation. That's really what's happening. People who take the easy route. I don't. The quickest and easiest thing is to hit a child if they do something wrong. That's the quickest and easiest thing to do. So when parents do that, that's what they're doing. They're taking the easy way out. Now, some people will disagree, and that's fine. I can't tell you how to parent your kids. I can't, and I won't. And I don't say anything to anyone when I'm in a situation where I see a parent who is humiliating their child or hitting their child. I don't step in. It's not my place to step in. But this is my show, and I do have a say in what I say on this show. And I'm saying that that's wrong. That is not the way to handle disciplinary problems. And if you think it is, the problem's not with the child. The problem's with you. And the research is there to back me up. This is not me just coming up with some theory that I just popped into my head and I just thought. I'm not saying that I'm an expert on child psychology, but I do have a master's degree in education. And part of that, you had to learn child psychology, some of it. I'm not a PhD, but you don't have to be to know that injuring someone because they've done something wrong is not the greatest way, not a good way at all, to get them to be compliant. It just isn't. Now, I can give you some examples of when I did open my mouth, and I would do it again, even though that I have my anger in check. I've really worked on that. I've become more tolerant, less aggravated, and even when I am aggravated, less likely to let anybody know about it. But even to this day, I would still, if my kids were involved, and I'll give you two stories about my kids being involved where they were being humiliated, and I stepped in because I thought I knew that was my job. Now, one was at a T-ball game. I'm sorry, not a softball, T-ball game about 7, 8 years ago with my youngest daughter. And the coach decided that he was going to just pitch a few pitches instead of them hitting off the tee. He was going to throw some underhand pitches to them, really slow, and give them a chance to hit from pitching. And that if they didn't hit it in 3 pitches, he would put it back on the tee and he would let them hit off the tee. All right. So we were like, great. We're teaching the kids how to hit now. We're kind of progressing a little bit later in the season. Now they're moving on. And a grandfather from the other team didn't like that. And for whatever reason, it got on his nerves and he was screaming at our kids, heckling the kids. If they missed the pitch, he would scream, strike one, strike two, strike three. And it just went on and on and on. And I didn't want to make a scene in front of little kids, 5-year-old, 6-year-old kids, and also parents. I wanted to just let it go. And I was hoping that he would eventually stop. And he didn't. So finally, the cork blew. because my kid was involved, my child. And I turned to him and I said, without cursing, because I knew there were kids there, if there weren't kids there, very likely I would have used language that would not be appropriate for this show. But I turned to him and I said, would you shut up? You're heckling 5 and 6-year-old kids. Shut up. What you're doing is humiliating. And he was nasty about it. But then on top of it, his son-in-law was there, which I didn't even know there was a son-in-law there. And he came running around and he's cursing at me. He's dropping F bombs and just terrible language in front of kids. And he's telling me how he's going to beat me up and he's going to fight me and this and that. And I'm just like, the only thing I was saying at the time was just keep your mouth shut. You're cursing in front of kids. Let's not make a scene in front of kids. I wasn't worried about him beating me up. I wasn't worried about me beating him up. I was worried about what are these kids seeing right now. And I told him, I said, you're going to have to back off. I said, I can't, we can't do this in front of kids. So I tried to diffuse the situation as best I could. And, he just kept screaming and cursing. And I finally told him, I said, look, if you're not going to be quiet, I actually said, I'm going to have to give you a little nap because he wouldn't stop. And it was, kids are crying. That's demoralizing to see that kind of stuff. And I didn't want to fight with this guy. I wanted him to stop heckling his father-in-law to stop heckling kids. I didn't want it. And I think I was within my rights to do it. I don't think that was wrong. When our kids were born, when our first child was born, I have 2 daughters. When my oldest daughter was born, we had a family party. And some family members believe in corporal punishment. And they believe that they can spank any kid that's in the family, whether it's their kid or a niece or a nephew or whatever. And I knew that was how they thought. And I also knew that was not going to fly for me. That wasn't going to work. And I was trying to think of ways to diplomatically say, you're not going to touch my kids without being confrontational. So I tried to do it with humor. So we were all sitting around a table, aunts and uncles, and my father, who knew how I felt and also agrees that corporal punishment is not the way to teach kids. And I told him, I'm going to lay into you here. And I just want you to listen. I don't mean it to you, but I want to get the message out. And we're sitting at the table. And I said, we really don't believe in spanking, Dad. And I'll tell you something. If I'm not going to spank my kids, there's nobody else. I don't care if it's you or anybody else. Nobody's going to spank my child. And if they do, I'm going to put them over my knee and I'm going to spank them. So there was a chuckle around the table because there was, it was kind of trying to be funny. But I wanted to get the message home that no, you're not going to hit my kid. You're not going to hit my child. You're not going to humiliate them. Embarrassing a kid in front of people, why would you do that? What does that teach? Now, I saw it this weekend. I was at and I hope the friend who was involved, I'm not going to use the name, if she's watching, I hope she's not offended by this, but it was an Eagle Scout event, and a 17-year-old kid was leading it. And like all 17-year-old kids, he didn't remember everything that he needed to do. He was very good. I mean, I thought he was really good. And I listened to what he wanted. When he said, do this, I did it. When he said, I want you to, could you dig this hole? Could you, do this or do that? I did what he said. I followed what he said. But there were times where he didn't know what to do and he wasn't sure what to say and how to lead. That's okay. He was 17. I didn't either when I was 17. And the reactions from some of these guides, I guess, or whatever you want to call them, leaders, They were saying things like, if you don't figure it out, we're going to leave. Or, what's your problem? Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? And instead of pulling the kid aside and saying, listen, I want to teach you some of the things that you might have done wrong here. No, he had to do it in a military style, aggressive, demeaning way. And inside, I'm burning up. I'm on fire inside. I'm angry. But I'm not gonna say anything because it's not my place. It's not my kid. I'm not a leader of that group. Not my place to say anything. But inside, oh yeah, I was I was feeling it. I was pretty angry. And I thought to myself, if this were my child, I wouldn't physically attack this man, but I would verbally attack that man and then tell him, look, if you want to be this, if this is what you want to be, then why don't you join the military and do this to grown people? And if that's what you want, and that's what you want to show, and that's what you want to be, then do it there, but don't do it to kids. And also, my kid is now no longer part of your group. I would pull my kid out of the group immediately. So it just is very frustrating to me where this idea of we have to be rough and it's got to be tough love, and no, it doesn't. It can be any kind. Look at Fred Rogers, and I've mentioned him how many shows now. Was he tough love? No, no. Did kids learn from him? Absolutely. Sesame Street, shows that I grew up watching as a kid. Was there tough love involved in that? No, there wasn't. It was soft. It was nurturing. It was helpful. It made you feel good. Mr. Rogers would say, I like you just the way you are, not you got to change all this stuff about yourself and you're not worth anything until you are this. That's not how it works. What you're doing when you humiliate a child, even into their, like I said, early 20s, the brain isn't completely formed until about 24, 25. So if you humiliate a 22-year-old, you're doing damage. If you humiliate a 16-year-old, you're doing more damage. And the younger you go, the more damage you're doing. And you know what I noticed? Because I watched these things, is that young 17-year-old was being criticized and undermined and humiliated. He then started to do that to the people that were under him. See, he was learning that to get people to do what you want them to do, you have to be rough with them. You have to beat them up a little bit and make them afraid or make them feel inferior. That's a bad life lesson. That's a really bad life lesson. Because let me tell you something about fear. Fear is temporary. Fear is temporary. If I am your boss and I decide to lead by instilling fear, and I make you nervous every time you see me in the hallway, you try to jump into another room so I don't see you and you don't incur my wrath. That might last for a little while, and you might get a lot of work done and just to appease me. But you know what you're going to start doing? You're going to start doing less and less because you're going to hate me. And you know what else you're going to do? You're going to look for another job. You're no business is the only game in town. It's not. I've had bad bosses who and I could take it as an adult at the time. So when I was in my mid 20s, early 30s, and I had bosses who were awful, I didn't feel humiliated, but I certainly didn't take it. I did less. I cashed my paychecks, but I didn't give any extra effort. I did what I had to do to get by, scrape by. It wasn't worth it to me to be humiliated or ruled by fear. I just decided that this is not anything that's going to make me motivated. In fact, it went the other way. It made me less motivated and it made me more motivated to try to get out of work and try not to do things. Now, you change that and you give me a boss who is kind and who's nurturing and who's behind you and has your back, I'll go over the wall for them. I'll do whatever I can to get them to know how much I appreciate how they lead. Simon Sinek is a speaker. He's younger than I am. I'm almost 51 now. He's probably in his late 40s, but he's very wise for his young age. And I guess we're middle age, but in any event, um, Simon, I was going to say Simon says, Simon preaches that being in charge is not being a leader is not being in charge. It's taking care of the people who are in your charge. There is a difference. I'm going to say it again. Being a leader is not being in charge. It's taking care of the people in your charge. He's absolutely right. He's absolutely right. He's also right about brutal honesty. Why does honesty have to be brutal? What is it about honesty that has to be brutal? If somebody says to me, have I gained weight? And he uses an example similar to this. I'm not going to humiliate them. I'm not going to say, oh yeah, you've gained a ton of weight. You look terrible. That's what is that? I might say, well, yeah, you've put on a few pounds and that's okay. But you know what? It's for your health. It might be a good idea to, eat better and to get into the gym. You can't lie. I mean, if somebody knows if they step on a scale and they were 120 pounds or 130 pounds a year ago and now they're 180 pounds, they know they're heavier. They realize that. You're not going to be able to lie out of it. You're not going to be able to say, no, you didn't gain any weight. They know they did. They could see it. They could see what the scale says. So you can't not be honest, but you don't have to be brutally honest. And that's what Simon is telling us, is that where is this idea of brutal honesty? You can be honest without being brutal. So when somebody says, I have I gained weight, can you see that I've gained weight? Yeah, I can see that you gained some weight, but you can lose it. And if you lose it, it's just going to take some exercise and diet. Just give it some time. That's all. I mean, and I could even say to them in my own life, yeah, I mean, I've been overweight myself and I wasn't healthy. And I decided that I could change that. I'm not unique. I'm not something special that I figured it out and you can't. No, you could do the same thing I did. There's no reason to be brutal. There just isn't. And again, when you do it to adults, it's bad. When you do it to kids, it's worse. It could really affect them. I'll give you another example. When I was in 5th grade, the first 2 semesters, I had straight 98s and 99s on my report card. Straight through every subject, bang, top. Was probably headed to being in the running for valedictorian of our 8th grade class. Now, I'm not saying that to brag, but I studied hard. I'm not super intelligent where I can not study and still get good grades. I worked at it. I did a lot of work to make sure that I got the grades that I wanted to get. But then we were playing volleyball one day at gym class, and the teacher of the class made me the MVP of the game, even though I wasn't the best player in the game. I wasn't. And I know I wasn't. And even I was scratching my head thinking, why is she making me the MVP? It doesn't make sense. There are 3 or 4 other people that played much better than I did. And her words, and I still remember them. See what I mean by it doesn't go away? I still remember what she said. She said, well, I beat Justin the MVP because when someone who is not athletic plays well, we have to recognize that. So what did she tell the whole class? She didn't mean it. She wasn't trying to be vicious or brutal or humiliating, but she was. She's telling the class he's not an athlete. And we're going to make him the MVP because it was like a pity trophy, right? It was like, well, he's really not that good of an athlete, so we're going to just tell everybody that he was the best today, so we'll just make him the hero today. Let me tell you something that happened in my third and fourth semester. The grades dropped. I had that report card. The 99s, they dropped to 80s, 75s. You would look at it and say, is this the same kid? Is this the same student? How did this happen? Did he all of a sudden go from a straight A student, 99s, almost acing everything, to all of a sudden struggling and being a B and C student? You could trace it right back to that. I could trace it right back to that volleyball game. That's exactly the moment where that happened. Because in my head, in my 10-year-old brain, maybe 11, maybe it was after my birthday that year, I said to myself, I don't want to be a nerd. I don't want people just to see me as a smart guy. I want them to see me as an athlete, as not, I mean, at the time, I guess, as a man, even though I was a boy, but every little boy wants to be a man, or at least most of them do. And especially at that time, was a premium on, being masculine if you were a boy. And, that comment really derailed my academic career in grade school. And I even write about that in the book that I've written. I haven't published it yet. I know I've said that for years. I have the book done. I just haven't gone and published it. But you know what? I didn't recover from that. I didn't. Sixth grade, same thing. I was not a great student. Seventh grade, eighth grade, really not. I mean, I got by. High school, I got by. College, I got by. I was college. I was more of a 3 point something student, 3.1, 3.2, but it came easy to me at that point. But did I work as hard as I could have? No, I didn't, because I didn't want to be that kid that or that person that she made me out to be. Now, I was not a great athlete growing up. I know that. I know that. I never became a great athlete, but I was a decent athlete. Wasn't good at baseball at all, but I could catch a football and I could play hockey. I wasn't a great hockey player. I was more of a street hockey player than an ice hockey player as a kid, and I was good at it at that, and so I was somewhat athletic, but then I got into weightlifting, and I that's athletic, and I really excelled in that. I mean, that's probably the best sport that I've ever been able to accomplish. But I just hope what you're hearing is that those scars just don't go away. They don't, and scars don't go away. The injuries do, and that's what the scar is. But the scars don't leave. So you got to make sure when you talk to kids, when you teach them, when you coach them, when you are a leader of Boy Scouts, when you are whatever it is, if you're a leader of a church, whatever it is, pull them aside. Don't make examples out of them. The whole idea of putting, kids chewing gum in school in the old days, and they would tell you, "Oh, stick it on your nose," that was the punishment to embarrass you, or the dunce cap, right? Go in the corner and wear the dunce cap, or passing notes, reading it out loud for the whole class to hear if it's embarrassing. None of these things are good. They don't teach anything, except for they teach a kid how to be damaged. Is that what you want to do? Is that really what you want as an adult? Do you want to do that? And think in your own head, did you have moments when you were a kid where you felt that, where somebody did it to you? And again, it could have been inadvertently, it could have been on purpose. But did somebody do that to you in your life? And what did you feel like? How did it feel? How does it feel today when you get reminded of it? What triggers it to make you think of it? Like I said, my grandfather, I love him to death, and he's gone now. He's been gone since 2018, and I love him more than I even have words to describe. But that moment when he said, "You talk too much," when I was a 5-year old or whatever I was, 4 or 5 years old, that is still inside me. That's there. He didn't mean to do it, but he did it. Now, in some ways, It's made me a better father and a better man because I'm very, very aware of it, so that when I am in a situation where I could potentially say something that would be humiliating, I don't. I think about it. I really calculate what's in my head before I say it, especially with kids in the classroom, when I coach sports, when I parent, all those things. You know, listening to kids. We talk about Dr. Jacqueline does a great job with the listening mentor. She does a great job with that, and uh, the elevated listener uh, program that she has, which I would advise everyone to take if you have it. That doesn't just stop at adults. That's also kids. One of the things that damages kids a lot is just being ignored. When a kid wants to get involved in a conversation, or if they have some sort of an opinion on something, adults tend to just steamroll them. I've seen it, but I don't do that. I said, what was your idea? What were you thinking of saying? Even if it's ridiculous and it doesn't make any sense, so what? Just listen for 5 minutes or 3 minutes or whatever. Why make that moment more than a moment? Why make that moment a lifetime scar for some kid? Is there any reason to do it? And what is the positive out of that? Because again, they have to live with that for the rest of their lives, and they're going to do it to some other kid when they get older because they think that's the right thing to do because you taught them that. You taught them it. I saw that Saturday. Again, I go back to this Eagle Scout leader. Instead of pulling the kid aside and say, listen, you should think about this, you should think about that. Yeah, he's threatening to leave. He's threatening, well, everyone's going to leave. It took everything in me to not say, well, I'll stay. If you want to leave, go ahead and leave. And if you want to take everybody else, take everybody else. I'll stay. But I didn't do that because it wasn't my place to do it. But that's what I was thinking in my mind. I was like, wow, this is really, something that is not right. And scars, you cannot help that kids are going to get hurt. You can't. It's impossible. One of the most devastating things that I've ever gone through with my daughter was when she was going through that stage where she was kind of between a kid and a teenager, and she didn't want any pictures taken with Santa because she thought she was ugly. And I remember my heart dropped when she said that, I'm ugly. And I know that's something that was painful to her, but it was and knowing how painful it was to her, it was crippling for me. I mean, it really, really dropped me, buckled my knees a little bit. You and you know, I told her, no, you're beautiful. And she said, well, look at me. I have, pimples and I'm gawky or whatever it is she said. I said, well, again, not lying. I said, yeah, you're going through a stage and that'll pass. But you're not ugly. You're still beautiful, but you will change. All these things, these pimples will go away and your body will fill out, all those different things. It's normal. But you can't stop kids from getting hurt. It's just not possible. But how you treat them when they're hurt and what you do goes a long way to how they handle it later on down the road and how big those scars are later. I'm going to end with this. I teach a class, and this class is called Giving and Receiving Positive and Constructive Criticism. Now, notice the two words, positive and constructive, not positive and negative, which usually we say. There's nothing good about negative criticism, nothing. Negative criticism means you're not helping anybody. You're just being nasty. You're hurting someone with no benefit whatsoever. Constructive criticism is totally different. Constructive criticism is, I notice that you're making this mistake. Here, let me help you fix the mistake. Instead of saying, what is wrong with you? Why can't you figure this out? You are a moron, or whatever you're going to say, and make somebody feel terrible about themselves. How is that going to help? How is that going to make them any better? Negative criticism shouldn't exist. It's not good at all. Constructive criticism is very good. So, yeah, I'm a little animated tonight, a little aggravated, because from what I've seen over the weekend, and also I've seen in schools around the area, and also, from my own experiences. So just think before you talk, and just picture what you would feel like if you were in that position, whether you're a coach or a teacher or whatever you are, because what you do today may have ripple effects for the next 70, 80, 90 years. If a kid's 5 years old and they live to be 90, that's 85 years that they're going to live with that. Think about that. All right, I want to thank everybody for tuning in this week. We'll have some later, I'll have a later show next week, but we're also going to be doing, yes, I forgot my business. Just for you, training, computer training and consulting. I also do soft skills and consultation. So I do teach things like giving and receiving constructive and positive feedback, and Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Copilot, which is AI now, is involved. I teach Copilot, all these things, time management, project management, all these different classes. I do individual classes. I teach people in corporations. You contact me. There's my phone number, 610-324-5545, or Justin at justforyoutc.com. I also have my charity, Checkmates Charitable Association, which we're really doing a lot of work with, trying to grow it as much as possible. We were really hockey-centric for a long time, but now we're building it in different ways, different areas. Still involved with hockey, but we're going beyond that. So keep checking that website. We're going to be revamping the whole thing, getting it all done. So keep a look for that. And then I would just want to tell you that Dr. Jacqueline came up with a great idea. She wants to do a sports show, and we really don't have one on the network. And I'm going to be hosting it with some different hosts until we find a final permanent host. And it's going to be on sports nostalgia. We're really not going to compete with the sports news that's around today. There are way too many outlets that tell you about today's sports. We're going to go back to yesterday. We're going to talk about sports from years ago: Muhammad Ali, Arthur Ashe, Jesse Owens, the 1980 Olympic team, U.S. hockey team, all things like Muhammad Ali, all these different athletes, Mary Lou Retton, people like that who may have been forgotten since the 80s, or in some cases 50s and 60s. So keep a lookout for that show. We're coming up with a title for it, and we're going to have that show coming up after the new year. It will be prior to this show, so I'll be doing back-to-back shows. So again, I want to thank everybody for their time, and I'm looking forward to seeing you next week. Have a great rest of the week, and take care.
In a noisy world, true connection begins with listening. Elevated listening transforms every conversation in just 5 simple steps. Pause and breathe. Set your intention. Listen with curiosity. Reflect back. Agree on one next step. Join the Listening Mentor on Let's Finally Talk with Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck, the Listening Mentor, where we help you find inner peace, one conversation at a time. Streaming every day. Let's Finally Talk TV show with Dr. Jacqueline Kerbeck, only here on USA, Global TV and Radio. Subscribe to our YouTube channels to watch and engage with all our content.
USA Global TV and Radio proudly presents Tracy Cram Perkins, a dementia caregiving survivor teaching how to balance care with peace of mind. #1 resource for dementia caregivers. It's the book Dementia Home Care: How to Prepare Before, During, and After. Over 17,000 copies sold of this must-have guide. And now a testimonial from Tracy Smith.
If I was to describe this book to someone who is going through a similar situation, I would underscore how important it is to have some sort of a tool or a guidebook to help you through certain stages. And there's so many, it's such an unknown topic to the average person. And to have this as a reference is essential. It's going to help you get through it personally, as well as help your loved one manage.
To learn more, go to TracyCramPerkins.com. Tracy Cram Perkins is an award-winning author. She's also the host of Dementia Home Care television show. Watch it here on USA Global TV and Radio.
The moon is a spotlight, the sun's on the stage, the world's got some good seats, but nobody stays. They get their opinions, I've got mine too. So darling, please listen to what I say. Listen babe now, listen babe now. Listen babe now, listen babe now. Listen babe now, listen babe now. If our love isn't true, what can I do? Reinventing myself, letting go of you. I've got a confession, just a thought or two. Darling, I'm better off without you. Listen babe now, listen babe now. You got the power. Listen babe now, listen babe now. No need to hide. Listen babe now, listen babe now. Girl on fire. Listen babe now, listen babe now. You got the power. Listen babe now, listen babe now. No need to hide. Listen babe now, listen babe now. Girl on fire. Listen to what I say. Listen to what I say. Listen to what I say.
Thank you, viewers and listeners of USA Global TV and Radio, for joining us today. We're honoured to have your time and attention as part of our global community. At USA Global TV and Radio, we believe in the power of authentic conversations, meaningful connections, and creating a world of possibilities together. Want to be part of something bigger? Join our team of elevated listeners at usaglobaltv.com, a space where your voice matters and your ability to listen transforms relationships. Stay connected with us across all our platforms for thought-provoking discussions, expert insights, and empowering stories. Subscribe to our channels at youtube.com/c/USA Global TV. follow us on social media and explore the endless opportunities we're creating for growth, learning and inspiration. Together, we're not just broadcasting, we're building bridges and changing lives one conversation at a time. For inquiries, contact us at info@usaglobaltv.com. Music by Johnny Dyes. Produced by Executive Producer and Director Dr. Jacqueline Kerbick. Voiceover by Mike Porter. Creative Direction by Paul Garcia. All rights reserved. Copyright 2025. Visit usaglobaltv.com to view our full terms and conditions.